I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Canon. We've been Disney fans our entire lives. And now, as childless adults, we're undertaking a journey through the media that shaped our lives.
Trying to find out if what made them special is still there.
We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hola, Kiki!
Hi, Tuesday.
Yay, we are still in the spooky season, and we're doing a little, going south of the border a bit. We're doing Dia de los Muertos, even though it's a few weeks away, but it's fine. It all kind of rolls together anyway, honestly. We're doing...
Yeah, in America especially.
Yeah. Especially how much of the Mexican Dia de los Muertos culture has kind of gone ingrained into Halloween over the last few decades.
To be honest, Americans treat Halloween in general in a way most countries don't. Like, Halloween is more an outgrowth of, some particular Christian mixed with some European pagan traditions. But even in most countries that celebrate Halloween, they don't do what America does. America celebrates them some freaking Halloween. Like, it is a major holiday here. But in a lot of other countries that celebrate it, it's like a day, the kids might do something, but like you would never really celebrate it as an adult. But in America, we go all out. And for a lot of us, myself included, it is our favorite holiday. And honestly, I think it's because of the Mexican influence. Because a lot of what are considered the American traditions of Halloween do tie over in a lot of ways with some of the Mexican celebrations.
Yeah, of course, the Dia de los Muertos celebration is the Day of the Dead, where the Mexican culture is you offer gifts to your fallen loved ones so they can cross over from the land of the dead into the land of the living for one day and visit you. Yeah. Of course, you can't see them because they're dead, but, they're there. I am not Mexican, but I have gone. There are several traditions that carry over into the Puerto Rican variation of it, but it's all the same, lighting of the candles and all that stuff. So this movie did hit pretty well, at least with me. A little bit of my own culture on the big screen, from Disney no less.
Yeah. It isn't my culture, but I've actually participated in quite a few Dia de los Muertos celebrations. The particular church I go to is very multicultural, and in years past, when we've had a larger Mexican contingent in the church, some of the leaders of that moved away recently, so we don't really, we probably won't do it this year and stuff. But back when we had a few Mexican members who wanted to lead, they would hold celebrations for us and share that part of their culture with us. And I kind of miss it. I think even though it isn't my culture, it aligns a bit more with my ideas on the honoring of the dead. Personally, my own personal feelings on it. And I'm sad that my culture tends to eschew those kind of ceremonies and celebrations, which is, it's not just a strictly Mexican thing in general. Some of these ideas are found in various other cultures as well. The idea of the honoring of the ancestors and shrines to the dead and setting out offerings and welcoming them back into the home and things like that. But it's not one that the kind of general American waspy culture that I come from is particularly interested in as a group. And I find that very sad. We are very disconnected from our dead in many ways. And I don't like that.
So yeah, we are talking about Coco, which last week I said came out in 2015. I have been corrected. Did come out in 2017. My mistake.
Yeah. Those things happen.
Yeah, this happened. Like I said, this movie really resonated with me. So, part of my own Latino culture being represented in this movie, and this movie came out at an odd time for me. Personal life, I had gone through some family tragedy, and this movie, I'm going to be honest, there are parts of this movie where I was straight up bawling because it just reminded me so much of the loved ones that I had lost in those few years prior to this movie coming out. And at least again, so this movie does have a bit of a soft spot in my heart because of all that. Even rewatching this movie for this podcast, I still had a little bit of those feelings, and the eyes got misty during certain parts. As they say, it's not a Pixar film unless it makes you cry.
Yeah, the Pixar films are excellent at doing that. As we get into some of the other Pixar films, we're gonna get to the ones that do that to me personally. So do we want to talk about the background of this and how we got here?
Yeah, I mean, it just pretty much was Coco. Pixar wanted to do a Day of the Dead movie, and they also wanted to do a musical. So this is Pixar's first musical, and considering what Pixar had done previously, to essentially do a Disney style musical wasn't fully taken in by a lot of people. Like, it was part of the, now Disney taking over Pixar. Now they're doing Disney like movies rather than doing their own stuff, and I could see where that's going. But this music is such a big part of the Latino culture that there's no way you can do this kind of movie without music, at least to me.
Yeah, and with the exception of kind of the one major song, I mean, Remember Me is kind of a more general song, it feels like to me. But the music is all extremely influenced by the culture. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't hear it and not immediately go like, yep, they were trying to do specific Mexican music styles. It feels weird calling this a musical though, because it's really not. It's a movie that has a lot of music in it, but it's not structured like a musical. Mm. With the exception of the one big song, Remember Me, the songs in this don't really like move the plot forward so much as they are there. They're like background and they're interesting, but they're not really like part of the plot necessarily. There are songs where music is used to good effect and very meaningful. I think something like Forrest Gump, where like the songs in that movie are very important to the moment they're going on, but you would never call that a musical,
Sort of like the soundtrack to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Yeah. Or even something like A Star Is Born. Mm. It's a movie about musicians and they do sing songs, but it's not really a musical. It's a movie that has songs in it. And that's kind of the way I feel about Coco. It doesn't really feel like the structure of a musical. If you were like, hey, is Coco a musical? I'd be like, no. But that's all right. I mean, I think the music that it uses is used brilliantly. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's the way to go because Pixar really isn't known for musicals, so maybe this was kind of the way that they needed to go to work music in.
And there was a little bit of controversy. Again, it's not a Disney episode without a bit of controversy. Mostly because a lot of Mexican groups, Latino groups, were upset that Disney was trying to kind of copyright Mexican culture in a way. They did at one point try to copyright the phrase Dia de los Muertos. Bad move, Disney. Bad move.
Yeah, not a good look.
So it was like they're trying to copyright Mexican culture. They eventually dropped it, explaining that they were trying to protect the copyright of their movie. Yeah, right, Disney. You also tried to copyright Hakuna Matata.
Yeah, don't do that. Stop doing that. The other controversy, of course, for this one was that apparently they did not give any credit or acknowledgement to the woman who they based Mama Coco on. She lives in Mexico, and she was like nearing 100, I think, when they went and talked to her and took pictures of her and recorded her and stuff. And basically, imagine the image of Mama Coco, but as a real person, and it looks. I've seen a video of her, and yeah, if you just passed that woman on the street, you'd be like, that's Mama Coco. She uses the same kind of wheelchair. Her hair is done in the same hairstyle. Her face, I mean, they copied almost line for line of her face. And her family says that they never gave her any credit, but that her village in Mexico has become kind of a tourist attraction now because people want to come to the village that Mama Coco lived in or lives in. I believe she's still with us, but she's over 100 years old now. The family has not asked for like money from Disney or anything. They just want Disney to acknowledge that that's where they took the look, that they based it off of this woman. So Maria de la Salud is apparently her name. So I don't, as far as us recording this, I've never found that Disney has actually admitted that they used her likeness. So.
And I do like that a majority of this cast not only did the English roles, but also did the Spanish dubbing of this movie.
Yeah, a lot of them did. Quite a few of them also were in both versions of the film, and both the English and the Spanish versions of this are up on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch the Spanish language version, it is up there as well. It's a different film though. It's not just an audio track you have to do.
Yeah, it's odd that they went with that.
So I thought it was odd because I'm used to just, if they like Mulan has several different language audio tracks. Interestingly, none of them is Mandarin.
Yeah, I heard that controversy. I heard that one. Yeah.
So, but it is interesting that they put this up as like Coco in English and Coco in Espanol. It's like that is fascinating to me that they've separated it like that. But let's talk about who they got in the cast because they got some interesting people.
Hey, let's go for it.
Well, we've got, and of course, apologies if my Spanish is very limited. So if I mispronounce anything, apologies in advance. But we've got Anthony Gonzalez, who got his start in the Colombian version of the X Factor, it seems. From what I can tell, he was in the TV series The Bridge. And interestingly to me, he is going to be a major voice in Far Cry 6. Which is a game I'm very much looking forward to because it is a direct sequel of another Far Cry game that I am super into. And the main two characters in that game are going to be Giancarlo Esposito and then Anthony Gonzalez playing Giancarlo Esposito's son. So we then move on to our other kind of leading character, Hector. And we have Gael Garcia Bernal, who is known to general American audiences in things like Bad Education, Mozart in the Jungle. He was also in Y Tu Mama Tambien. So, pretty successful actor with rather widespread appeal in America now. Then we have probably the biggest name in the main cast, which would be Benjamin Bratt as Ernesto de la Cruz. He's probably best known for being on Law and Order forever. But you also know him from things like Demolition Man and Miss Congeniality. He was in the really awful Catwoman movie, but he also does a lot of voice roles too. He was in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and Despicable Me 2. He's in Justice League Gods and Monsters. Moving on, we've got Alana Ubach, I believe is the way you pronounce that.
That sounds right.
She's Mama Imelda. She's probably best known to the general American audience from Legally Blonde. But she does a lot of voice work as well. She was 4 different characters in the movie Rango. And interestingly, to people of our generation, she was the first female assistant on the show Beakman's World.
I remember that.
So if you were, our generation kind of comes down to the people that watch Bill Nye and the people that watch Beakman's World. But if you watched Beakman's World, she was the first of the female assistants that was on that show. So fun little millennial trivia for that. Then we have Renee Victor as
Abuelita.
Abuelita Elena, I believe her name was, but she has interestingly, she is one of the main voices in Skyrim. So if you're a big gamer, you might recognize her voice in that. And then most recently, she's appeared in the TV series Snowpiercer alongside Daveed Diggs. So interesting there. Rounding out kind of the major cast, we have Anna Ophelia Marguia, I believe. Forgive me. As Mama Coco herself. She is a Mexican actress of some renown, and I'm going to be very honest in the fact that I've never seen anything she's ever been in, except for Coco. She has been in some kind of famous Mexican productions, The Queen of the Night, Nobody Will Speak of Us When We're Dead, but pretty much everything on this list is very much. It's all Spanish language. It was produced in Mexico or thereabouts. And my knowledge of Mexican media is unfortunately very slim. We do have some interesting kind of cameo and other appearances. We've got Edward James Olmos as Chicharron. I
didn't.
that name,
If you listen to that character, you would never tell that was Edward James Olmos' voice.
Yeah, he's kind of disguised a little bit. I will say I love any character named Chicharron because that is one of my favorite things to eat.
The fact that he's just called Cheech.
Yeah, the fact that they shorten it to Cheech.
And the fact that he's not
funny.
played by Cheech Marin.
Yeah, who plays a different
character in this movie.
We'll get to that. But yeah, Edward James was almost a legend. I mean, come on. I absolutely thought that that him in Battlestar Galactica was just, But also most people would probably know him more from his Oscar-winning role in Stand and Deliver. I mean, Oscar nomination, excuse me. I don't think he won for Stand and Deliver. And of course, he was Detective Gaff in Blade Runner. He's in Selena. He's in, I mean, so much.
Historically,
the man has an IMDb page longer than a CVS receipt. We have Cheech Marin, like we just said. He's a corrections officer in there. Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian, plays the clerk. I think he's the clerk that Hector talks to.
Yeah.
John Ratzenberger is in here.
The only non-Latino in this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. He is, of course, the good luck charm for Pixar. That they had put him in everything.
Yeah, because he's been in every Pixar movie.
Yeah. And then one that you brought to my attention that I had kind of missed is we have the character of Frida Kahlo in this movie, and she is played by Natalia Cordova Buckley, who is Yo-Yo on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah. The fact that they put a character of Frida in this movie, the sheer number, not a sheer number, but there was quite a few of Latino celebrities in the afterlife. Like, my favorite one, again, personally, is El Santo.
El Santo was great. When that came on screen, I was not expecting that. When that came on screen, I was like, it's El Santo!
And he's still having his mask on even though he's dead. Because he was buried in his mask.
Of course. It's... Would you expect a luchador to take off their mask even in the afterlife? No.
No.
I loved that as a selfie though, where the guy just hands his skull to El Santo to hold, and then his body takes the picture. I loved that.
Speaking of the skulls, the fact that all of the skulls have that calavera look to it, the candy skull, for those of you who don't know the word.
Yeah, they all have like scroll work kind of etched into or they'll have the bright white coloration. But even on like Hector, which like his markings are much more subtle because of kind of the way he's being forgotten and whatever, but you can still see that there's these kind of etched markings along the cheekbones and the forehead, and I loved that. I thought that was cool. This came out around the same time as another movie about Dia de los Muertos.
From Fox, which Disney now owns.
Yeah.
The Book of Life, which came out not long before this. So there was some controversy around that. Again, we've talked about the controversy of two animation studios making very similar films.
Yeah, Book of Life beat this by about 3 years.
Mm-hmm. So you could, yeah.
I have not seen that one.
I have, and it's a really good movie. I can understand where people can say the similarities there, other than the fact that it's Day of the Dead, and there's a character that goes to the land of the dead. The stories are very different. I would say Book of Life has more in common with Corpse Bride than it does with Coco. So if you're familiar with Corpse Bride, that's a very similar story to Book of Life. Sadly, Book of Life not on Disney Plus.
I mean, maybe soon. They're adding a lot more of the Fox stuff.
And a lot of the Fox movies are tied up with other streaming services, so those contracts have to expire first.
Yeah. Do we want to get into the plot here?
Yeah, let's get into the movie proper. So we have our Miguel, our main character, who just wants to make music again. Latinos and music, it's a thing. But his entire family hates music because of their patriarch kind of abandoned them to pursue a music career. And the matriarch, just rather than wallow in her own self-pity of her husband leaving her, decides to start her own business in making shoes, and that becomes the family business of they all make shoes, and music is banned in their family because, well, music kind of started them on this course to begin with, Even Abuelita just is so against music, chasing off anyone who plays music around their house. That has to be kind of a boring existence of a house with no music in it.
She chases off even strangers.
Yeah.
Walking down the street singing or playing music nearby.
Just imagine you're sitting there, you're humming a song to yourself, and this old Mexican lady goes, "No music!" with a chancla in her hand.
Yeah. And this is by my count, Miguel would be the 5th generation.
Around there.
In this shoe business. If it was started by great grandmother Imelda, then you'd have Mama Coco's generation, Abuelita's generation, Miguel's parents' generation, and Miguel.
Yes.
I feel for Miguel a little bit. Slightly different circumstances for me, of course, but pretty much everything I found interesting was banned when I was growing up. We've talked before about my kind of extreme conservative upbringing, so there was music, but it was all very, it was religious music. It was a very particular type of music. And movies similarly were very restricted. Television was very restricted. No dancing at all ever. So part of that does ring true with me. Is wanting to learn more about something, and that being kind of a taboo thing for the family. Also the kind of pressure to go into the family business.
Yeah.
Which I didn't, unfortunately, completely escape. So yeah, those were very much, points of empathy for me in watching Miguel's story.
I gotta say, I mean, I'll say this about Abuelita. She reminds me so much of my own mother. Just in the way she talks, the way she acts, even I said, did you want more tamales? See, that's what I thought you said. Like, oh, that's my mom right there. You've met my mother.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I unfortunately never get to eat a meal with your mother, but I wouldn't have. I'm never gonna turn down seconds or thirds and I absolutely love any sort of Latino cooking. So I definitely want more tamales.
So yeah, we have Miguel, and Miguel is obsessed over Mexico's greatest musician, our De La Cruz here, and that's his idol. That's who he wants to be when he grows up. He even modifies a guitar to look exactly like De La Cruz's guitar. And like a lot of Mexican celebrities, like especially with Mexican wrestlers, they would just make movies about them. Like it would be, like Elvis. He's pretty much Elvis in this movie.
Yeah, he's a Mexican variety of Elvis in a way.
How Elvis did a bunch of movies. Yeah, go ahead.
Except a lot more cowboy movies.
Yeah.
Western themed, kind of movies.
Considering the era that these movies would have been made in, that sounds about right.
Yeah, this would have been about like the 40s probably.
Yeah.
And that would have been a big genre at the time. I'm just gonna say that I thought Miguel was really weird because at one point, we see him kind of go into his like little attic or whatever that he's created.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole shrine to De La Cruz, and I'm just thinking, what sort of weirdo keeps a shrine to a dead singer in their house? Yeah. As I look meaningfully slightly to my right.
David who?
Yeah. To be honest, I will say
your dog Bowie.
Yeah. To be honest, I will say that one of the reasons why I did not watch Coco until now is because it was like, hey, do you want to watch a fun movie about dead people where a kid goes into the afterlife to find his favorite famous singer? And I'm like, I observed an entire year of mourning that only ended in January of that same year, so maybe not. It's not entirely where I was at in wanting my entertainment to talk about at the time. So yeah, but I related a lot to various facets of Miguel. That was another one.
Kudos to Miguel though. He self-taught himself how to play the guitar just by watching De La Cruz's movies.
Yeah. Really impressive. And I did like the way that they focused on Miguel's fingers on the guitar strings to show exactly how he was changing chords in some of those scenes.
Yeah.
I am only the most basic of guitar players. Mm-hmm. But even with that, I was like, oh, that's exactly the correct hand shape for some of those chords. So, bravo to the animation team for, being that nitpicky about that.
Yeah. So yeah, Miguel, he does kind of have a job in a way. Part of the family business is he goes and he shines shoes. He's a shoe shine boy. I mean,
child labor is always fun. But yeah,
it gets him to where he needs to be in the movie, which is to find out that there is a talent show in the town square on Dia de los Muertos. So he wants to sign up for it. But yeah, Abuelita is not having any of that. And the fact, like I said before, she hits people with her chocolate. That is such a Latino aspect that I had to laugh at that. Miguel, go get my shoe.
She throws it at the dog, and then she tells Miguel to go get it. Yeah. I do not like her talking down the dog, though, Dante is easily one of the best parts of this movie.
Dante is good boy.
Yeah.
I think it's one of, again, Abuelita here just seems to be a very angry person, at least in this opening part of the movie.
It does kind of seem that, we don't really know, I don't get the sense of whether or not Miguel's father or Miguel's mother is the one that married into the family.
We don't know, and I think that's done intentionally.
But the couple of generations of matriarchs are all kind of angry-seeming women. I guess it's a little unfair to Mama Coco because we don't really see what she was like before the dementia set in.
Yeah, we completely skipped over that. Mama Coco has memory issues. That's a big part of this movie. Again, that's another part that I think a lot of people would resonate with. There are a lot of families that have loved ones that are going through the Alzheimer's. Mama Coco calls Miguel Julio. And other things. She's very still. She doesn't do much. She's getting up there. And
one of my grandmothers, although her mind was pretty sharp until almost the day she died, but one of my grandmothers had dementia. One of them did not. Mm-hmm. And the one who did not still had a problem remembering the names of the grandchildren because she had so many grandchildren. At one point, she called me Tippy, and I went and I asked my dad. I was like, "Who was Tippy?" And he was like, "It's a dog that we had when I was little, or whatever." So yeah, that I think grandmothers are kind of the same, no matter your cultural background in some respects.
Let's get into the dog Dante, the street dog that Miguel kind of takes in.
A Mexican hairless.
Yes.
Oh, I love those dogs. They're so adorable.
And thanks to Dante, we're kind of skipping ahead here. We learn of the ofrenda, the shrine of the past relatives that they have, mostly Mexican cultures, especially for the Day of the Dead, where you have all the pictures of your past relatives so they can cross over into the land of the living. And we see that the picture is torn, with the great great grandfather's picture torn out again because he abandoned the family. They have chosen to forget him because he willfully left the family. Kind of cold-blooded, but understandable.
Yeah. I think we've all known people who are like, you start asking about their family and then they're like, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, the black sheep and all that. So
yeah, he's kind of that part of the family. We don't talk about him. He is dead to us. His name is not spoken.
So yeah, they feel that they need to, for lack of a better term, quench this whole, or douse this whole music flame in Miguel by making him part of the family business officially. That they're going to start having him make shoes in their business, which obviously he doesn't want to do. That's not his passion. His passion is music, but the family hates music. There's our thing for the movie there.
Yeah, I will say that my favorite bit in the actual shoe shop itself is the one like uncle or whatever who's polishing the shoes in the back and like lets go of the shoe and it shoots into the ceiling and you see there's a whole bunch of shoes.
Those are some strong shoes.
Yeah.
To actually go through the ceiling and stay there. Yeah, and Miguel just does not want this whole shoe business. He just wants to be a musician. And poor little Dante kind of knocks the ofrenda over. because he wants some food, because they put food on there. And as a dog owner yourself, you know, if the humans put the food out, it's for me.
Yeah, I will say we've broken Bowie of that. You can now leave food on a table and he will not take it, but it was a struggle.
So yeah, the pitcher gets knocked over, and Miguel sees that the great-great-grandfather has Dela Cruz's guitar. So he, in his putting two and two together, he believes that Dela Cruz is his ancestor. So it's in his blood. It's in his nature to be a musician. And he brings this up to his family, and they want no part of this. Like, they don't care if Dela Cruz is their ancestor. He abandoned the family. He deserves to be forgotten. Abuelita goes a little overboard. Like, it made me hate the character when she smashes the guitar. Just straight up smashes Miguel's guitar. Like, that's going overboard.
Yeah, anytime that a character, you know, I kind of really hated his living relatives, and a lot of his dead ones, throughout most of this movie, because if you crush a child's dream, I have very little empathy for you. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just, to me, that's something like precious and sacred. Like, it may not be a likely dream, maybe, but most little kid dreams aren't like dangerous, you know? Like, maybe if you got a little kid being like, you know, I want to grow up and become a serial killer, maybe squash that dream.
Yeah.
You know, but most of it's like, you know, I want to be a scientist or an astronaut or an actor or whatever.
Yeah.
Let the kid dream. You know, the reality of that can come later. You know, get them a chemistry set or buy some books about space or whatever and be like, here you go, let's explore that, you know? Because, yeah, they'll probably grow out of it. I think most people grow out of their kind of childhood dreams, which, you know, might be a little sad, but then on the other hand, you could have a famous scientist in the family when they grow up or whatever, you know? Who knows?
Yeah. The little kid who wants to play doctor might become a surgeon one day. You never know.
Yeah. So the fact that she like goes through of smashing the guitar, just, oh no, you don't do that. You don't destroy a kid's possessions, especially not in anger. And you don't squash a kid's dream. It's just, ugh.
Yeah. So, yeah. So he's going to find another guitar, and ultimately, well, he wants to get into the talent show, but they won't let him in because he doesn't have his own instrument. Apparently, you can't sing a cappella at this talent show. I've seen I've seen many talent shows that allowed for a cappella singing. But we need to get the movie going, apparently.
Yeah. So he's a much better guitarist than he is a singer. That seems to be where he focuses.
So he breaks into the mausoleum where Dela Cruz is buried, and
because like grave robbing is a thing that we should do now.
But it's okay because that's his great-great-grandfather after all.
Yeah, that's his, you know, whatever you got to tell yourself to sleep at night, Miguel. The interesting thing is that they do have the guitar in the mausoleum, and the mausoleum is not really guarded or anything. I mean, it's got like locks, but it also has breakable windows.
Yeah, for someone who's supposed to be the greatest singer in Mexican history per this movie, you think that his mausoleum would have more security.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if his signature guitar was just hanging out
Yeah,
all
it wouldn't
not
even.
guarded and everything.
Yeah, I mean, in this scenario, why would have the actual guitar and not some sort of replica?
Yeah,
Why
and
have the real?
who knows? It might actually be, but the movie seems to tell us not. I guess everybody in Mexico was just on Scout's honor to not go steal that thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you should, of course, but it just, it seems like some bad actor would have broken in there at some point in the, decades that he's been gone.
Yeah, and we find that when the security guards finally get in there, they pass right through Miguel. And
Yeah.
rightfully freaks him out. Wouldn't you be freaked out if 1 second you're alive and a second you're a ghost?
I don't know. I'd probably just be like, oh, finally, cool. I'm a weirdo.
Yeah.
But he runs out a little freaked, and the graveyard is full of skeletons.
I see dead people. But they know they're dead, so it's okay.
Yeah.
One of the artistic choices in here is each of the skeletons still has their hair and their facial hair while being dead.
Yeah, some of them still do have hair, some of them don't.
Again, I think it's just so not all the skeletons can look alike.
Yeah.
And they pretty much look the same as they do in the living world. They get our skeletons, so their body shapes stay the same. Even the more heftier people still have more heftier skeletons. Okay.
I guess they really were big boned.
Yeah, they really were big boned after all. Though I do like how even when the skeletons are separated, they can magically reform themselves. We kind of see that a few times in the movie.
Yeah, of skeletons, the bones getting separated and just kind of snapping back together.
With no idea what to do, they want to get to the matriarch, but she can't cross over. So they can't talk to her because Miguel has the picture from the ofrenda. Yeah.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, Mama Imelda not gonna like that. So they have to go take Miguel to the land of the dead to talk to Mama Imelda to figure out what they're going to do.
And this is the point where we're really introduced to the most problematic part of this movie.
Go ahead.
I mean, Disney makes a movie about Mexican culture, and one of the major plot points is border control.
Considering it also, this is 2017, the year after, yeah.
Yeah. I mean...
Almost a year to the day.
Yeah, the first part of this movie, I really like the setup and everything. When we get to the land of the dead, this movie just becomes like, I hate to use the word problematic, but it gets a bit weird to me. Because this is a nightmare of an afterlife. As portrayed. And I don't think it has anything to do with the cultural anything. I think it's just the way the writers chose to portray the afterlife.
How each person has to get scanned before they're allowed to go back to the land of the living.
Well, there is the very weird border control system.
And they have to declare their food that they're bringing back from the land of the living.
Well, the interesting thing is that the food and offerings is a sort of direct wealth system.
Yeah.
They have their own like weird classism. You know, you have people like Dela Cruz who they're on many ofrendas. People give them many gifts. They have more than they know what to do with. And then you have like Miguel's family who like their family gives them gifts. They're all right. You know, they're middle classish or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have people like Hector and the Forgotten who live in a literal slum in the afterlife. The afterlife has slums and poverty.
Yeah. Capitalism is eternal, apparently.
Yeah, and it's like, what kind of, I mean, I can sort of see Disney being like, of course the afterlife has capitalism, but it's like, for anybody else, like, is this your version of, I hate to say heaven, that's a very, you know, kind of Christian-centered kind of idea, but like, is this any culture's version of the afterlife? Maybe the Ferengi?
Yeah.
It's like, you still have material wealth. You can be better than other people by what offerings you're given, you know.
And this is where we are introduced to Hector, as
Yeah.
he is a forgotten. You know, no one has put his picture on their ofrenda, which means he cannot cross over. It is later in the movie, but we find out he just wants to see his family. He wants to see his daughter, which, you know, he wants to see his daughter one more time because that's the last one that remembers him. Once she's gone, well, we'll get to that point later.
Yeah.
You're kind of skipping ahead here.
But I love his kind of way to get past the border guard.
It's Frida.
Yeah, by dressing as Frida Kahlo, who Frida Kahlo is such a huge part of this movie. I mean, rightfully so. Frida Kahlo was awesome.
Do you think if they had the money, they could have actually got Selma Hayek to reprise the role?
I mean, they're Disney, so they definitely had the money. But I just loved, you know, I'm not sure how Frida herself would have felt about this. Given her, you know, political leanings and stuff like that, she'd probably bristle. But as just here is a part of Mexican culture, it was kind of fun, I guess. And at first I thought like, oh, he's just dressing up as a famous Mexican, and he picked Frida Kahlo. But like, he knows her. She's a friend of his.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought it was very, very strange, but you know, mixed feelings on that one.
So yeah, they bring Miguel, and this has never happened before. They have to go to the Office of Family Services to figure out what they're going to do with him. And we see Mama Imelda, who is rightfully peeved that her picture is not on the ofrenda. She cannot cross over. Equally as mad when she finds out Miguel has it. Miguel has stolen from the ofrenda.
Yeah.
Again.
We can see in Mama Imelda how this family took shape.
Yeah.
She is an incredibly strong, let's use the word strong, woman. I can think of lots of other words for her, but maybe not for this show.
She become strong, though. I mean, like I said, her husband left her, and all alone to raise a child, and she has to go into the workforce, so she kind of had to be.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of us have, You know, the grandmother I mentioned before, who kept messing up the names, she was a child with the Depression. She had to leave school at 5th grade to take care of her family and go into the workforce and become the breadwinner for her family. Then she got married and had a child, and very soon after she had a child, her husband was taken away to war. So then she had to work and raise a child as basically a single mother for years. She was that same kind of strong woman, but the thing that I admired about her was that she didn't become a cruel woman.
Mm.
And I think Mama Imelda became cruel.
Mm.
And that's the thing that, sometimes life circumstances can explain a person's behavior. I don't think they always excuse a person's behavior,
Sure.
let's say.
And none of the other family members, I mean, they're straight up scared of Mama Imelda.
Yeah, nobody will say a word against her. And it seems like some of them want to.
Yeah.
Because they find out that it's very simple to send Miguel back to the land of the living. They just have to take one of the flower petals that are used to guide the dead back home, give him the blessing. You have my blessing to go back to the land of the living, and that's it. Except that Mama Imelda keeps saying, she adds a caveat on it. You can go back to the land of the living, but you can never play music again. And Miguel goes back to the land of the living and breaks it within seconds. He hits a chord on the guitar right back in the land of the dead again.
And this is, again, it's like in before. It's like he wants to be a musician, but the family is against it. Or specifically, Mama Imelda is against it. And obviously, Abuelita was against it. Everyone else seems to be understanding of it, but the matriarch is the boss. This is definitely something that is in Spanish culture. I mean, I've gone through it myself with, you once the mother puts down the law, that's the law. You don't go against it. It's cruel. It is not fair. Yeah, I got no excuse for that.
Well, I don't necessarily think that, respect for elders and even, I'm all for a matriarchal society. I'm not going to be mad at it. But I think it's an individual thing.
Yeah.
You can use the power for good, or you can use the power for kind of spite.
Yeah.
And I think Mama Imelda was so hurt that she used it for spite. And we never really know what Mama Coco was like before her memory started to fade, but it's very obvious that Abuelita Elena is more like Mama Imelda than not.
Yeah.
They're very similar as people. And we don't know if she got that from living with Mama Imelda before she died, or if Mama Coco was also like that to some extent.
We'll never know because they never tell us that part. So
yeah,
Miguel just gets out of there because he figures De La Cruz is his family, so he'll get the blessing from De La Cruz.
Yeah,
makes sense.
The only problem is De La Cruz is the most difficult person to get to because he's the most famous person in the afterlife.
Yeah,
and he's surrounded by security and lives in a literal tower that you have to take a sky car to.
Yeah. I mean, imagine, you go to the afterlife and you find out you're related to someone famous. Oh, they're my family. Nope, yeah, you're not getting this. Again, classism, capitalism.
Your name's not on the list, kid.
but he's my grandfather.
Can we just say that the afterlife also has cops? There are cops everywhere in this afterlife, and I'm like, can I pass on that afterlife?
Yeah, and yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very segregated by class. You know, their own version of class. Afterlife.
I mean, the afterlife is pretty much the living world, just everyone's dead.
Yeah, it's just that the offerings are used as money more than food. Like, we never really see it change hands, but the thing is, there is a marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
We see a marketplace in the afterlife, and there are people selling T-shirts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
that Miguel and Hector walk through, and like, why? Like, you go to the afterlife and you set up a T-shirt stand as your business in the afterlife? What a nightmare.
You can't really take it with you in that sense. So you got to use your offerings to pay for their Dela Cruz T-shirt.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. It's so weird, and I do not want. So
with Miguel, Miguel. There's a consequence of staying in the land of the dead as he starts to turn into a skeleton.
And bravo to the animators. That effect is amazing.
And it the effect kind of does get better as the curse continues on Miguel's body as it advances throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, every few scenes you can see that more of his exposed flesh, you know, his hands, or, you know, when he pulls up his shirt at one point and you can see that his stomach has entirely faded. Mm-hmm. They show that progression really well, and very subtly as well, which I like.
Well, he's pretty much dead in 12 hours, so he's kind of got to they got to speed this curse along, apparently.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over how he and Hector team up, because Hector needs Miguel to go back and put Hector's picture on an ofrenda so that he can go back to the land of the living and see his daughter one last time. Mm-hmm. He knows he's fading. He just wants to get across. He probably will not make it to the next Day of the Dead. He wants to cross over tonight, see his daughter, and then he can experience final death in peace.
Yeah, but we did have a skipped over that, which we actually get with Cheech here, is that once there is no one else left in the land of the living to remember you, you no longer exist in the land of the dead.
Yeah, and he really does call this the final death.
It really, I mean, yes, the physical body's dead, but that's what he always say, you know, no one's ever truly gone as long as you remember them. That is pretty much in every culture and every religion. As long as you remember your loved ones, they're never truly gone. What happens when you do forget them? What happens to them in the afterlife?
And apparently it's the obliteration of the soul and consciousness.
Yeah.
Because we see it happen.
You see it happen to Cheech. He just fades away into nothingness. They even say, where do you go when you're forgotten? Nobody knows. Because, you know, you can't really come back from that.
Yeah. Maybe that's when you get to the actual good afterlife.
Yeah.
I hope. Because
that whole exchange between Cheech and Hector is that, where's my femur?
Yeah, what in the world did Hector need with a femur?
I don't know.
Like, what emergency did he show up and be like, Cheech, I need a femur? I do not know, but wow. This is, to me, the most terrifying scene in the film.
Yeah.
The bit with Cheech. I said that, like, the whole Land of the Dead section is just like all of my triggers in a film. This is the big one. That's like my biggest existential fear.
Being forgotten?
Yeah, it's the idea of you know, my own beliefs are kind of peculiar to me, but I'm not sure I really believe in like an afterlife as a place you go, kind of in the way that we see it in this film, is like, oh, your consciousness just goes to somewhere else and lives whatever. So to me, really the only form of afterlife or immortality is that idea of being remembered. There's a really good Terry Pratchett quote that talks about that no one is really dead as long as you speak their name. As long as something they created is still being used in the world, or an idea that they came up with is still being thought, words that they spoke are still being spoken, that kind of thing. And to me, that's the afterlife. That's where you go after you die. You perpetuate in the memories of other people and in the memory of the culture or the whatever. And that's always been my biggest fear, that I won't attain whatever my version of the afterlife is, and to see it put so starkly in a children's film kind of was not a good day for me when I watched this movie.
Yeah. Though Juanita, that song is still one of my favorites in this movie.
It's a really good song. All the music in this is really beautiful.
Especially the fact that Hector has to change the lyrics because Miguel is there.
Yeah, I really want to know what the original lyrics are.
What do you think?
Well, I know, but I would I want like a version of it,
Yeah.
I want the Disney After Dark version of it.
The After Dark version of that song. Again, you can guess. Some things drag on the floor. It's like,
yeah.
Take a wild guess on that. Although I do like that the punchline of the joke is that if only I wasn't so ugly, I'd have a chance with her. Even though he's described this woman that is supposed to be this very unattractive woman, but I'm so ugly, I don't have a chance with her.
Yeah.
I just love that that's the punchline of the song. And of course, Cheech fades into oblivion, and Hector has one last drink in his honor. I like that one last shot in a way.
Yeah.
Just goodbye, my friend. And that is the reality of this movie, is that's what Hector is going to happen to Hector, because there's only one person in the living world that remembers him. And once that person goes, there is no one in the living world to remember him. He will fade away too. Even Miguel said, I'll remember you, but you never knew me when I was alive. It doesn't work that way. You have to have known me when I was alive, and my story needs to be passed down.
Well, here's the thing, though. That doesn't really seem to be true. He says that the story has to be passed down by people who knew you in life. But the thing is that, it might be that, like, how many people knew De La Cruz in life?
Yeah, but he's famous, I mean, so a lot of things
the little girl, the tiny little child, when he was at his height, is now so old that she's about to pass away. And how many people who really knew him in life? So it's got to be perpetuated some other way. And like you said, he's famous. His story is being told by other people, so he's living on. So I think that's the way, is somebody who knew you in life had to tell the story to somebody else, and then if that person tells the story, you're still remembered.
Mm-hmm.
But because no one in the family has told the story of Hector, he is being forgotten.
Yeah.
Which is sad. And you wonder, like, what was Cheech's, like, he's kind of dressed as like an older throwback, so you kind of wonder, like, what was he in life? And is this kind of the natural thing of like everybody who knew him has just passed on, or what?
We don't know. Again, it's just there to put that idea of a person being forgotten.
Yeah.
And so there is a talent show. Miguel finally gets to play this talent show, and the winner of the talent show gets to go to Dela Cruz's party. And poor Miguel has never performed in his life. Poor Miguel. So he gets coaches from Hector, to learn to actually scream from the heart and get his emotions out there on stage. And it kind of works. Knowing the end of the movie, you have Dante bringing Hector on stage and they're performing together. And they get a pretty good reaction from the crowd with their little routine, with Miguel singing and playing the guitar while Hector is dancing around. It's actually a pretty fun scene.
Yeah, I really like it, and I like the song that they sing.
Yeah,
on Poco Loco.
Yes.
I love it. It's such a good song.
The song of the girlfriend that just is giving the complete mind freak to the person singing. What color is the sky? You tell me it's red. Where do I put my shoes? Put them on your head.
Yeah.
It's a silly song, and if you actually take the song seriously, that's an abusive relationship.
Yeah, it's one of those. Don't think about it too much, but it is fun, and the tune is fun as well. But the problem is that before they can finish and find out if they won, well, Miguel's family shows up, and they're all like, "Hey, has anybody seen a living boy? We're here to find a living boy."
Which upsets Hector because, hey, you said you didn't have family on the other side. You told me Dela Cruz was your only family, so you lied to me. You can go home at any point you want. You can take my picture anytime you want so I can be remembered, and you're playing this game by trying to get your famous relative in some kind of way, Just trying to meet your famous relative.
Yeah, and Miguel is like, no, they will not. If I go back their way, I'll have to never have music in my life, and I'd rather be dead.
Well, all he has to do is stick around, and he will be.
Well, yeah, and that's what he would say. I'll go back either able to play music like I want, or not at all.
Yeah.
Which, mad respect. I'm not sure that I would want to live in a world without music either. So,
Yeah, so he just straight up goes to Dela Cruz's little mansion in the afterlife. And
he gets the band who did win to sneak him in.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what? You're a musician and you say you're his relative? All right, we'll do that. And they shove him in a tuba.
Well, they also think, they also make it look like they were kind of impressed with his performance at the talent show.
Yeah, they were kind of a big fan of what he did.
So yeah, he gets to the party, and well, what better way to get someone's attention than become the center of attention? He starts playing. He sings the song that because one of Dela Cruz's movies is playing on the big screen. Apparently, they have movies in the afterlife.
I wouldn't want to go to any afterlife that didn't have movies.
Can you imagine a theater in the afterlife where every single movie ever made is playing? Infinite number of screens.
That's an afterlife I want to go to.
And so yeah, he sings the song that that Dela Cruz is singing in the movie, and it gets Dela Cruz's attention. All right, this kid is singing my song. He's actually not so bad, and he falls into the pool, and Dela Cruz saves him. Why would you need to say if they didn't know that he was the living boy and he's just a skeleton that fell into the water? Why would he need to be saved?
I don't know. It's a movie. Go with it.
Yeah, and
I will say, Dela Cruz throws a banging party.
Hey,
this party looks amazing.
I mean, like I said, how many celebrities throw banging parties? Like I think if you go to like Elvis's parties or David Bowie's house parties,
Yeah, it kind of depends on which era of Bowie.
That's true.
But this is actually like even cooler. Like there's multiple big screens showing various movies of his. There's a pool with synchronized swimmers doing a routine. There's a really awesome DJ and cool lights and like so much food, and it looks amazing. But Dela Cruz ends up saving him. Saving, whatever. He fishes him out of the pool and compliments his song, and then then Miguel's like, I'm your great grandson or whatever.
I have a great grandson. Like Dela Cruz is shocked to find that he has living relatives.
Yeah, look, it's my great grandson. Everybody meet him. He takes him on the tour, introduces him to everybody, and shows him off.
Yeah, that would be a shocker, though. I mean, imagine you're dead, you're in the afterlife, you hear this person say, "Oh, I'm your relative." Like, wait, how did this happen?
The interesting thing is that we know that Dela Cruz is on multiple ofrendas.
Mm-hmm.
But none of them are anybody he wants to visit, because we never see him cross the bridge during the Day of the Dead. There's never a point where they said, like, oh, he's off in the land of the living, he'll be back. No, he stays in the land of the dead and he has a party.
Yeah.
So I get why he's like, wait, I have living relatives? Because apparently he's not gone back to visit and check.
True.
Which, tells you a little bit about his personality.
Yeah.
From the start. But yeah, he seems perfectly happy to send Miguel back. But he wants him to stay for the concert, and Miguel's like, well,
he can't
because I don't want to die.
Yeah. Enter Hector's back, because he's just saying, hey, if you found Dela Cruz, you found your family, please take my photo when you go back to the land of the living. Just begging him, I don't want to be forgotten. Please, just do this one thing. And we find out that Hector and Dela Cruz, they really do know each other.
Yeah, Hector had kind of mentioned at the beginning, I can get you to Dela Cruz because I know him, which is why Miguel was with him in the first place. And now you find out that he was telling the truth. He actually really does know Dela Cruz.
And we find out that Hector was the one that wrote all of Dela Cruz's songs. All of those songs that he sang for his entire career, Hector wrote them all. And Dela Cruz stole them. Well, I didn't steal them, you died. So you never gave me any credit for them, which again, that's a jerk move, Dela Cruz. You should have given proper credit. I mean, that's the plot of several movies involving music. Hey, I want my credit that you never gave me. Even many stories in real life of people who wrote songs who never got the proper credit for it till later in life, even after they died.
Yeah. And that's true. But even worse, like you said, jerk move. Then we find out that it gets even worse.
Yeah, we see that Hector and Dela Cruz, they went on tour together as a group, as a duo, but Hector wanted to go home. He missed his family. He loved performing. He loved being a musician, but he wanted to be with his family too. And Dela Cruz, didn't like that and poisoned him and killed him. And Hector never knew this until that right at that moment, because he always thought he had food poisoning. That's kind
from chorizo.
Yeah.
That was it. There's a joke in the movie about the other people in the land of the dead mocking him with the nickname chorizo because he thought he ate bad chorizo and died.
That would be embarrassing. Can you imagine that's how you die? Like,
you know what? If I've got to go out, let me go out eating chorizo.
Like, no, I mean that's what your name. That's what they call you in the afterlife for eternity.
Wait, is that why Chicharron is called?
Possibly.
Dude choked on a pork rind and ended up in the afterlife.
Yes.
Although, what better way to be remembered in the land of the living? Because I knew a dude once who choked on a pork rind.
Oh, so you know him.
It's an awesome story that would get told for generations.
Honestly, now in the era of like the internet and YouTube, I don't know if anyone could be forgotten in the land of the dead, for better or worse.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's a meme going around that I laughed at before I watched this movie that said something about, you know, you only, it was a writing prompt about like you only have power if somebody in the land of the living remembers you, and then 500 years after you died, suddenly you discover you have a bunch of power. And it was talking about how we somebody made a joke about how we found like a bunch of ancient Roman tablets or whatever where people wrote complaints about somebody for selling bad copper and cheating them out of business deals, and the guy actually was so proud of all these business complaints that he got that he kept them in a room of his house, and recently we just excavated the room, and so like 1,000 years after his death he's become this famous meme online about like the first really shady businessman who got a bunch of hate mail.
Man, the first negative Yelp review.
Yeah, it kind of was like that. And so I kind of wonder if you're right. Like, would it really be possible? Like, if somebody wrote one, you know, like, oh, my buddy Hector died today, and you put it on Facebook or whatever, and then people keep reading it, you know, maybe it goes viral and people keep reading it. Like, is that its own form of remembrance in the afterlife? I don't know.
Maybe. Again,
I would hope
they
so.
wouldn't be able to cross over because the people who remembered them in life would be passing on, but they would still exist in the afterlife.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. People do all sorts of weird things, so there might be like one person who's like, well, I don't have a picture of you, so I can't put you on an ofrenda, but like I left some booze out for you or something, you know.
I printed out your tweet and put it on my ofrenda.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and so yeah.
It's a fascinating concept to me.
Yeah.
As much as it makes me existentially depressed and terrified in ways I can't quite put into words. But it is a fascinating idea.
And we kind of, yeah. So to get back in here, we did kind of skip over Dela Cruz's mantra of seize your moment. And because that's what he always says, you know, seize your moment, go after what you want. And we kind of see that he takes it to the extreme.
Yeah, murder your best friend and take his songbook.
Seize your moment, take what you want. And it's like, that's not what we thought that you meant. But now that the secret is out, he has a reputation to protect. So he's going to lock up Hector, and he's going to lock up Miguel too, because he doesn't want Miguel going back to the land of the living and telling anyone that the greatest musician of all time is a murderer.
Yeah, so Miguel, sorry, you're going to have to stay here.
Yeah, hope you like being a skeleton kid.
I will say that Ernesto is not very smart. Because all his friend wants to do is go back home and be with his family. Mm-hmm. Ernesto is the one that wants to play for the world. Mm-hmm. Using the songs that Hector wrote. Why not make a deal? Hector writes the songs. Ernesto sends him a little bit of money. Hector can stay home. Ernesto can get all the fame and glory. And also, the songs keep coming. You're not just limited to whatever Hector wrote until he died, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you see that Hector took his songbook with him. Like, I'm gonna take my songs and go home. I'm not gonna do this anymore. And he's like, hold on. I mean, there was a way they could have made a deal, like, hey, hold on, don't take your songs yet.
Let me buy those songs from you.
Yeah, I'll buy it. You know, we got paid this much for it. I will give you all the money we made on our last few gigs for your songs. I will own them. Knowing Hector, he would have probably done it with the exception of Remember Me.
Yeah, which did end up becoming De La Cruz's biggest hit.
Yeah. And we find out that Hector's daughter is Mama Coco, which reveals that it's not De La Cruz that's his ancestor, it's Hector. And
the family never knew he died. He went off on tour and he just never came back.
Yeah.
Which is sad. You know, they never knew what happened to him, and they figured he abandoned them, never knowing that he was trying to come home.
Well, they didn't want to know what happened to him. And that would... Who knows what would have happened if Hector was able to come home? Would Mama Imelda have accepted him coming home?
Well, the thing is that she does mention that they both gave up a little bit of what they wanted. You know, when she reveals to Miguel that she used to love music until her husband abandoned her. Mm-hmm. And it does sound like she was maybe annoyed that he went on that tour. Mm-hmm. But it seemed to her the thing that brought the hatred was that he never came back. Mm. And they had no, he decided to apparently leave the tour early, is kind of the sense we get. Like, They were supposed to go out and keep traveling, but he's like, no, I'm done, I'm going home. And apparently he didn't write, like, a letter or anything. He wanted to surprise them and just be like, hey, I'm home. I'm not going to travel anymore. So they didn't know to expect him. Mm. And so what else are you going to think really in that? It seems like they might have had a fight before he left. That she's like, no, I want to stay home with the kid. And he was like, well, let me go out and do this tour. Yeah. And so maybe they had a little bit of spat before he left, but it seems like Imelda's hatred grew from the fact that he never came back. Mm. But, Ernesto's having none of it because he's got to protect his legacy and all of his fans sending him offerings. So he throws them into a pit.
And steals the photo. Like, he has Hector's photo. Why would he even need Hector's photo? I guess he wanted Hector to be forgotten forever. Because even if he is founded...
in case Miguel makes it home, he's got no proof.
Yeah. And finally, Miguel's family ends up finding him. And, the reunion between Imelda and Hector. Like, they're like, Imelda! Hector!
Yeah, you can chill ice cream in in that moment. Like, it's a cold, cold moment.
And we find out that Dante is a spirit guide.
Yeah, we haven't really mentioned the spirit guide animals, but I'm not even going to try the Spanish for that one because I will mess that one up. But the adorable spirit guides, and Imelda's is like some kind of griffin or something.
Yeah.
It's like a giant flying
tiger,
panther or something.
Yeah.
But it turns out that Dante was also a spirit guide.
Yeah, in the guise of a dog. Apparently, Dante hates being in his spirit guide form because as soon as he starts to change back, he starts to panic and starts to bite it off.
Yeah, he's like chewing on his leg and stuff as it changes into rainbow colors. So adorable.
Yeah, and apparently Dante always knew who his true parents were, or his true lineage.
Yeah, because Dante keeps trying throughout the movie to reunite him with Hector.
Even pushing him into trying to get Miguel to go into the mausoleum to begin with to get the guitar, because we find out that's Hector's guitar. That's not or at least it was Hector's guitar before De La Cruz took it.
The interesting thing is that's the most famous guitar in Mexico. Imelda and Coco didn't see that and be like, why does he have Dad's guitar? Does he know what happened to Dad?
Yeah. Like, it's like, I don't know. I think, again...
Coco really loved her father, we find out, and did not want to forget him. Imelda wanted him forgotten, but Coco wanted to retain that memory.
Well, it's also, we don't go into the town square. We don't do anything. There's no music whatsoever. Yeah. So it's like they completely, they wanted nothing to do with any of it. So it's possible that they didn't even...
You're telling me that they never went to that part of town in 50 years? Come on. I don't know. It strains credibility for me. But...
It's a movie, I guess.
But yeah, they have to get Hector's picture back, and Imelda even agrees. Imelda and the family, they're like, all right, you're right. He helped you. He deserves to see Coco one last time.
He even agrees to say, I will go under your provisions of no music ever. Just let's help Hector see Coco one more time.
Yeah. And Imelda does that for her daughter, okay, fine. So they have to go to De La Cruz's big Sunrise concert to get the photo back, because De La Cruz still has the photo.
Yeah. And Imelda ends up on stage, and apparently there's cameras. Apparently there's pay-per-view in the afterlife.
For just one loaf of bread, watch De La Cruz's, I don't know how that transaction works, but can you, PayPal bread in the afterlife? Anyway. But I want to mention this scene with Imelda because they tell Imelda to start singing. And I love the song she sings. Mm-hmm. La Llorona. Mm-hmm. Because it's such an interesting, meaningful part of Mexican culture and Day of the Dead and folklore and because that's I don't know if it's the one song that wasn't written for the movie, but that's a pre-existing song that they just used in the movie. And I love that she sings it because it's about mourning and death. It's very connected to the Day of the Dead, and it's sort of like the Mexican version of a banshee, where La Llorona cries for children who are about to die, and it's an omen of death. So the fact that she sings this song while they're trying to help a child avoid death, if they don't get him back to the land of the living, he's gonna...
Yeah. I do want to backtrack a bit to when they first encounter Dela Cruz, and Imelda just hits her with her shoe. It's like, that's for killing the love that's for killing the love of my life. Wait, who's the love of your life? That's me. Wait, I'm the love of your life? I don't know. I'm still mad at you.
Yeah. That is a very funny scene. I love that we mentioned that Frida Kahlo is just in the movie as a character, but we really didn't talk about her, that she's part of this concert.
Yeah, I mean, and we did skip over that part of like when Miguel first meets Frida in the afterlife. She gets the preview of her idea of dancers coming out of a giant avocado that are dressed like papaya. Sorry, yeah, a giant papaya and all the dancers are dressed like her, and they go on a giant cactus which is also painted to look like her, and they drink her tears, which is milk. And I don't know if the actual Frida would have approved that. I did hear that had to be some controversy too with Frida's family.
Yeah.
And, again, I don't know, and if anyone knows more about that story, I would love to hear more about it. But
the thing about it is, I can understand the desire to use Frida Kahlo as a cultural touchstone.
Mm-hmm.
But if you remove the fact that it's supposed to be Frida Kahlo and all of her personal beliefs and stuff like that, this scene is funny on its own. Like, forget it's Frida Kahlo, it's just a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a choreographer coming up with a dance routine. And the way she describes this dance routine of, like, darkness, and then there is a papaya, and then dancers come out of the papaya, and they are all me. And then they climb a cactus. That is also me. Like, it's just such a funny sequence that only really becomes problematic because they're putting it in the guise of Frida Kahlo.
Yeah, and this whole dance sequence is the reason they got in, because they called in a favor to Frida, and now the entire family.
And they disguised themselves as dancers in the papaya, which is, by the way, a terrifying. Like, that should be in a horror movie. Is that there's a papaya, and then the seeds of the papaya start moving, and then they're like skeletons climbing around a papaya, and they're all dressed like Frida Kahlo. Like, that is a nightmare. That is something you would see in an actual nightmare. So I don't know. It's the weirdest, creepiest part of the movie that is filled with like skeletons and death.
Yeah. So they finally get the photo back, and Mama Imelda starts to give Miguel the blessing, and just tells him to be loyal to your family here. Like you think he's gonna put the condition of no music, but it says always remember your family.
But unfortunately, we're interrupted.
Dela Cruz wants to make sure to get rid of Miguel, to get rid of just to end this. No one's gonna know about the truth about Dela Cruz, so he's gonna kill the kid, because that's what you do. Yeah. Luckily, there's television cameras there,
and I love the one little Tia that like goes over and just moves the camera to focus on Dela Cruz.
Yeah. And they turn the camera on, and pretty much the entire afterlife is looking at their hero, the greatest musician that ever lived, kill a child. And not only that, but
throws a child off a tower.
While the child is saying, "We know your secret. You're a murderer. You killed Hector and stole his song."
And he's like, "Yeah, I killed Hector. I'm proud of it. I had to seize my moment. It was great." He gives a good villain speech.
Yeah, he's like, no remorse. Like, yeah, of course I killed him. I had to. He was gonna throw away a career. I couldn't let that happen. I took it, and I took my moment. He didn't want it, and just yeets Miguel right off the side of the building here. And goes out like nothing's wrong, and tries to do his song. Everyone saw what happened, and they're just booing him. He's trying to sing "Remember Me." They're throwing food at him. Miguel is saved.
I love the one guy that comes back with the elote. And he's just like, what did I miss? Everyone's booing and throwing things at De La Cruz. But I love that he went outside to get elote.
Yeah, he just went to the refreshment stand. He came back, and everybody hates De La Cruz now.
I love it. I love it.
So yeah, Miguel is saved by the spirit animals, but the photo is lost. The photo falls into the river and is destroyed.
Yeah, but the spirit guides do save Miguel and bring him back.
Yeah.
And then I love that Emil, the spirit guide, goes and grabs De La Cruz and just hurls him into a building.
Yeah, into a bell, which is how we did skip over it. That's how he died. Was he got crushed by a bell during a concert.
As I was watching this, which you remember was for the first time for this, but as I was watching it, I was chatting. I was chatting live with our good friend Adam, co-hosted the show sometimes, and when at the beginning of the movie when they explain how De La Cruz died when the bell drops on him, and I started laughing and I was like, did the coitus guy just get a bell dropped on him? Because in the ranks of Disney coitus guys, boy, De La Cruz really ranks up there.
Yeah.
Even before you know he's a villain, he just has that smarmy feel to him.
And as he is thrown into the bell and crushed a second time, the entire crowd is cheering.
And apparently they just leave him there.
Yeah.
Like, I guess he's just going to be trapped under that bell until the world forgets him.
Yeah.
Which seems terrifying.
It's a hell of an eternity.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hector is fading because Coco is forgetting. She is forgetting her father. But Miguel has a plan to make sure Coco doesn't forget Hector, and they send him back to the land of the living. Beautiful as the sun is going up, you actually start seeing Miguel's skull.
Yeah.
And the black, the inserts of the eyes. Like if he doesn't leave at that very moment, he's gonna be a full skeleton. Again, as we mentioned before, the constant fading of the skin throughout the entire movie, especially that last part where you see the skull start forming. It's wonderful effect they had in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, the animation team on this was incredible. This movie looks just gorgeous. But they don't put any restrictions on him.
Yeah.
Just go back to the land of the living and know that your family loves you. Very sweet.
Yeah, so he's back in the land of the living. It's the day after the Day of the Dead. He grabs the guitar. He's running home because Hector is about to go to the final death. Meanwhile, Miguel's family has been searching all over the town for him. And he runs into Abuelita, who wants to stop him. Where have you been? What are you doing? Why do you have the guitar in your hand? Miguel just passes her by, locks the door to Mama Coco's room, and tries to talk to her, try to get her to talk about her father. You know, hey, I have your papa's guitar. Please talk to me about Papa, please. And the family kind of busts in. You know, get away from Mama Coco. Stop bothering her. Stop shocking her. Apologize to her. You know, you're bothering your great grandmother. You know, a typical scolding of a child who is just trying to do something nice.
Yeah.
I mean, every kid's gone through that. They try to do something nice, and the adults misunderstand what he's trying to do. Again,
yeah. Also he doesn't have time to explain because Hector was fading when he left the land of the dead.
Yeah, so he just apologize to your grandmother now, so they let him go, and he picks up the guitar. And he says, "Your papa wanted you to have this," and he starts playing. Abuelita is about just to blow a gasket, and the family's kind of holding her back. Like, no, let him do this. You know, like, I don't know.
Because he is sobbing. I mean, he is absolutely lost it at this point. He is beside himself. And the rest of the family kind of realizes something is wrong here.
Yeah, he is inconsolable at this point. So, you know, like just let him get this out of his system almost. And he sings Remember Me to her, possibly the first time she's heard this song since she was a child. And I'm not going to lie, I bawled at this scene.
It is a very emotional scene.
Like, I am talking full waterworks. I am not ashamed of this moment. I have snot in my mouth. Like, oh my God, I am just bawling at this scene because it does remind me of my own family members that I've lost. Like, that was like what I wouldn't give at that moment to have that song with my lost relatives. So it's almost a personal for me in that moment. And then you hear Mama Coco start singing along, and again, you know, that's the waterworks right there. This elderly woman with Alzheimer's hearing this song that she hasn't heard in 70, 80 years, and it's the thing that kind of brings her back. You know, ask anyone who's had a relative that has dementia. There's those things that for one moment you have your loved one back after whatever they're going through.
And honestly, frequently it's music.
Yeah.
There's a whole branch of neurology, especially with people with dementia, that studies how people with dementia react to music. And it finds that a lot of times music will spark memories and will sort of bring them, maybe not completely out of it, but will stabilize where they are and help them remember a little bit better. And so I like this part because it's based on science.
Yeah.
As well. And if you've ever dealt with a, you know, someone in your family that has dementia, you're right. It's those little bits where they come back. And this brings Mama Coco back, and she starts telling them the stories of her papa.
Kudos to Anthony Gonzalez for the acting and while he's singing, trying to sound like this kid that is just sobbing his heart out.
Yeah, it is a really good. This scene makes the entire movie.
And
the movie is good, but this scene makes it great.
This scene justifies the movie being called Coco.
Oh yeah. And
not Miguel Goes to the Land of the Dead.
or just Dia de los Muertos maybe, or
yeah, it's possible. You know, like the movie. That scene is why this movie is called Coco, because you have her, and especially with Abuelita, who is crying herself because she's never seen. It's been so long to see her own mother that full of life.
And also, she's never heard these stories either.
Yeah.
That Mama Coco had kept it all hidden, and you find out that she had kept all of his letters. She even kept the little torn out picture of the photo. So we do now have Hector's photo.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a beautiful scene.
It's such a nice, sweet scene, and it does tell you a lot about who Coco was as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know what she was like as an adult woman.
As a girl, she was just a kid that loved her father, and obviously missed her father.
Yeah, and Hector says that they sang the song every night at the same time when he was at home. I mean, it was, and she looks like 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah.
When we see the flashback scene of them singing together.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's a very effective scene, and it really is all built on the back of the fact that Remember Me is a brilliant song.
That song won an Oscar, and it deserved that Oscar.
It's also one of the few songs I can sing in Esperanto.
Ooh.
Right after the movie came out, someone on one of the Esperanto forums I'm on, because it's such a short and relatively simple lyrically song, somebody who was learning Esperanto did their best to try to do it. And she put a video up on YouTube in which she sings it in English, in Spanish, and in her own Esperanto translation.
Oh.
It's really beautiful. But because of that, it's one of the few. It's probably the first song I ever learned in Esperanto because it is so short and relatively simple.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that we hear this song at the beginning.
It's Remember Me. Yeah,
it's very bombastic. It's very demanding. You know, I am great and you will remember me. And then we find out that it's really just a lullaby.
A lullaby a father wrote for his daughter.
Yeah, because I have to go traveling. I'm a traveling musician. And while the song wasn't really written about death, of course, it's even more resonant when you put it into the context of death. So, you know, it definitely deserved the Oscar.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant song and it works. This is the one point where I think the movie crosses over into musical.
Yeah.
Because this song is so impactful on the plot and who the characters are. So I love it. I love it so much. But we finish off the movie by skipping
1 year later,
into the future.
We skip ahead 1 year, and the entire town has forgotten Dela Cruz, putting a big sign that says "Forget You" on it. They have completely turned on Dela Cruz and embraced Hector as the true great songwriter. Can you imagine?
Because it turns out that all those letters that she kept proved that Hector was the one that wrote all the songs and that they were stolen.
Can you imagine if that in real life, that if a famous person had this big secret that from their past that really showed them as a negative person, that every single person who loved that person just turned on him saying, "You are a piece of garbage and we will not remember you." Don't you just wish that would happen in real life?
Yeah. And honestly, this is kind of one of the only times where you could say that cancel culture was really a horrible thing. I don't really necessarily believe cancel culture is a thing myself, but, you know, in this film, it kind of is. I mean, if they forget him, he will literally cease to exist.
Yeah.
And honestly, he's a murderer. Good. But also, I don't think he will ever be forgotten. Because there are a lot of horrible, horrible people that we still remember for their horrible crimes. At the very least, the scandal will keep his memory alive.
Yeah, but
so he might.
In this world, there probably won't be anyone giving him offerings. But if this was real life, you know, there still will be people giving him offerings every year, saying, "Yeah, of course he killed somebody. If I could kill someone to be famous, I'd do it too." And you know, there are people out there that'll do it.
We already know that you can survive, I guess is maybe not the right word, but that you can continue to exist in the afterlife without offerings, without being on an ofrenda, as long as you're remembered. Mm-hmm. So he probably wouldn't be on the ofrenda anymore, but he would still be remembered.
Yeah, he just won't have any more offerings, so he has to survive off whatever offerings he has. He probably would still have a good life in the afterlife because he has more offerings than he knows what to do with.
But here's the thing. We last left him trapped under a bell. Do you think anybody in the life is going to, like, you know, pull that bell off of him?
Yes.
Or every hour on the hour, is there just going to be like a metallic bone clanking as he knocks on it, like, "Let me out"?
They have to get that bell off of him and put it back in the clock. They did fall on him. They have to get, even if they may not want to, they're gonna have to. And we find out there's been some additions to the family as Miguel now has a baby sister.
Yeah, his mom is pregnant throughout the entire movie. So she has now given birth to the baby. But unfortunately, there has been a subtraction from the family.
Yes, Mama Coco has. I remember when I saw this movie the day it came out. And when Abuelita puts Mama Coco's picture on the ofrenda, there was like an oh in that theater. It's like, oh, like everyone in that theater felt that.
Yeah, it is a pretty heart-wrenching moment, but it's not entirely a horrific moment because you know that she's going to be with her father again.
Her family. And
Yeah.
we see the fixed picture, the completed picture on the ofrenda of Hector, and the look of, it's the same guard from the beginning of the movie with Hector. It's like really, you're back here again? Please just take the pic. Just please scan me, and oh yay, someone has your picture on their ofrenda. Go, enjoy going back to the land of the living, and the look of happiness on Hector as he finally, after all these years, gets to see his family with the rest of his family by his side.
Yeah, and apparently him and Imelda have made up.
And it was the love of his life, after all. The love of her life, and,
Yeah, because we never find out that she'd, remarried or had any other kids. I mean, she was a single woman raising Coco.
Yeah.
So,
and you hear that, Papa, Papa, and there's Mama Coco, still old. Apparently, however you die, that's how you are in the afterlife.
But she is able to walk under her own power again.
So that's one thing to look forward to in the afterlife. It's like, yes, you will look how you look when you died, but you won't have the physical ailments you once had, unless you give your friend your femur.
Yeah. Where's my femur?
And it's just a beautiful, the beautiful song, because these movies need to have an ending song, apparently. But it is a bit of a musical where, you hear Miguel singing again with the guitar in a full mariachi costume with the other members of the family playing music as well. So they have a little bit of a band going on here.
Yeah, one of the little girls is playing the violin. Somebody has an accordion.
Yeah. And they're all, the living
and they're really good for people that have learned their instrument in the past year.
Yeah. And it's a nice ending. There's a happy ending. The Hector has been reunited with his family. The forgotten member of the family is welcomed back after the truth has come out. And that's the end of the movie. It's a beautiful movie. I love this movie.
Yeah. It's a cute movie, and I understand why so many people find it very emotional, especially because of that scene at the end, where they sing "Remember Me" to Mama Coco. For me, it was a little, like I said, it's kind of all of my, I didn't even get into most of them, but this movie hits so many of my weird trigger points that I didn't have as much fun watching it as probably people would have expected me to. And that's a very personal thing. It's like, don't show your friend who's afraid of spiders a movie about spiders. It's kind of it's kind of that sort of thing. This will probably not go down in history as one of my favorite Disney films because of very, very personal reasons. But I can appreciate it on an aesthetic level. The story is pretty good. it's got the nice, like, yay family thing, which again is maybe not a thing that I personally relate to, but okay. I like all the Day of the Dead stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not so keen on the bureaucratic, weird afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
That to me was by far the worst part of the movie. There is a YouTube channel called E-Licorice that maybe go look up his video on Coco and the immigration system idea. Just putting that out there because I found that a really good video digging into the weird bureaucracy of the afterlife. But I do think that for most people, this would be a magical film. So I do think that even though it's not personally for me, I do think that this has the Disney magic.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand how someone could not either not connect to this movie or, again, like you said, hits trigger points that would sour them. But at least from my perspective, it hit with me. It hit with me in a not only as an entertainment level but as a personal level. So yeah, to me, yeah, this movie has the magic.
Speaking as an outsider, even in the kind of Disney-fied version, it's nice to have people more aware, I think, of other cultures. Maybe more nuance in future.
Yeah.
But that's true of everything. If you're gonna do another movie about, Mexican culture, maybe hire Mexican writers.
Yeah.
And a Mexican director and
that was the thing that we coming back to the Book of Life. They actually had Del Toro involved with the production of that movie. So actually having a Latino director, a Latino producer, Latino writers would help if they would ever do this again. Yes.
Yeah, and I say that about, we said that about like Princess and the Frog.
Mm-hmm.
If you do this again, and I encourage you to do this again, get more black people behind the scenes.
I mean, people were saying the same thing about the recent Mulan movie, that more people of Chinese descent needed to be involved with the production, not just actors.
Yeah, the cast was mostly Chinese. There were some other, Asian nationalities represented. But yeah, behind the scenes, it wasn't quite as multicultural as you would have liked. And I want to see more movies about other cultures personally. And I make a point to try to seek them out when I can. But I don't want to have to seek them out.
Yeah.
I want them, I want more movies like this, or like even Mulan or Princess and the Frog, or, show me things that I can't see in my daily life, even if that's just the real world but another culture. But I want them to be readily accessible because I don't want to have to seek them out, and I want people to be able to stumble into it and learn something,
More major studios need to have stories like this, again, have a Mexican director, Mexican writer, Mexican producer make a movie about Mexican culture and release it from a major studio and have it be wide release, not just a glorified independent film, as it were.
Yeah, and I will say that the one thing that I did like about this is that even though it kind of primarily seemed to have come from, white executives and stuff, nothing about the actual observance of the Day of the Dead is treated as strange. or like paranormal other than the fact that, okay, the dead can come back, and Miguel does kind of say like, oh, you're real. And he was like, I thought you were just something that adults made up, like vitamins. And then they're like, well, vitamins are real. And he's like, well, now I'm thinking they might be.
Yeah, I mean, there was so many jokes they could have put in there, but they have to realize their kids are watching, so you can't say, oh, like, kids making things up like Santa Claus or Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
You can't have that line in there and have the kids say, wait, Santa is real?
Yeah. But the thing is that that's kind of the only joke at the expense of the holiday.
Yeah.
And it's a reasonable one. Like, the observance is not the weird thing. The fact that, like, the spirits of the dead are still there, this thing you can't see, that's the thing he's reacting to as like, oh, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, the dead are real. There actually are spirits and there's a spirit world.
Yeah, they really will come back to visit you. Which is fair. That's a fair thing to be skeptical about, I guess, as a kid. But nothing in this is treated as, I don't know, it didn't feel like I was like leering at another culture. Maybe I was, maybe that's my privilege coming through. I don't know. But it just felt more like, this is what we do, and it's very important to us, and we take it very seriously, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if other people felt like that, but I do like seeing, and I do like seeing more respect for the dead. Like I said, my own culture has completely forgotten the connection to our own dead. Mm-hmm. Which is something I think that we need to reclaim. And there are movements now that are trying to do that. I've, written academically on this topic and stuff in a way, but I think that a culture should be tied to their history and their ancestors in a more meaningful way, and I respect that. In in other cultures, including in the Mexican culture. So I like seeing that normalized for a group of people that have forgotten how important that is.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and I think that's all we can really say about Coco as a film and everything else. So I guess we can move on to next week. Next week is a big one because we're doing something that we've never done before. We're reviewing two versions of the same movie.
It's a double feature.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Sort of. We are looking at the original 80s version of Tim Burton's Frankenweenie and the 2000s remake that he did. So that's going to be weird. We're going to have two... because you can't have Halloween without Tim Burton. You just can't.
No. It's a law now.
Yeah.
We were all asleep when they passed it, and we just woke up one day and they were like, Tim Burton. Love him.
Yeah. Tim Burton is Halloween. So join us next week as we talk about both versions of Tim Burton's Frankenweenie. Because we couldn't decide which one we wanted to do. And that's all we have to say about that. And we will talk to you all later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Rewatching the Magic. We invite you to keep the magic going by joining the conversation online. Find us on Facebook at Rewatching the Magic, on Twitter at Rewatch the Magic, and of course, find all new episodes at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Until next time, remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it.